Good evening and welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Pace, and tonight we're going to fight CPS and stop taking our children. That's the subject tonight. Fight CPS and stop taking our children. This is a live podcast from Southern California. It's produced by Vincent W. Davis Associates, and Mr. Davis, the lead attorney there, who's a family law attorney, asked me to ask you all, if you need help, call him. He's at 888-888-6582. I'll talk about Mr. Davis as one of my first rules in a little bit. Now, you reached a podcast that you found us on Facebook, and we're broadcast on YouTube, and the application used is called StreamYard. Now, there's several ways you can interact with this podcast, and I'd love you to try your best if you could, because I love to have you speak. Now, the first way is the text messages. You can write a comment about your CPS case. All I ask is you tell me your city and state you're from or your country, because yes, I've had CPS questions from Australia, Canada, United Kingdom, Ghana, Mexico, and Mozambique. Those are some of the places that people have texted in from. And I pretty much have talked to over 500 some people in pretty much every state. So I have a lot of listeners. And then I have people repeatedly that come back that talk about issues. And last night, we had a really great guest on the show. She had called in, and she was a caseworker, not a social worker. Apparently in Maryland, they're called caseworkers. And she right away heard me talking ill of CPS and badly of CPS. And she said, "We don't do that here. We're sorry it's happening everywhere else." But she assured me that they are trained. Supposedly, they have additional 6 months of training that Maryland puts the social workers through. She didn't answer a lot of my questions. She did not answer a lot of my questions. And so we got somebody in here right now from Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Angela Ray from Rhode Island and Massachusetts. In fact, there was a case. I don't know if it's the same person or not. Maybe it is. A mother was going in for surgery at Boston, Massachusetts. Apparently, there was a CPS worker working at the hospital and questioned this person about where was her children. And I guess she was groggy or whatever the case would be, but she had placed her children earlier with her mom in Rhode Island. And the CPS social workers wanted to make a big deal of it. So they drove from Boston, the Boston hospital in Massachusetts, to Rhode Island, knocked on the door of the mother, and demanded the children. They weren't in any harm whatsoever. Now, I know that is an extreme case, but there's something wrong there. And maybe you could talk us more, Angelina, about that if you're the same person. I think you are. Now, besides texting in messages, you can also call in to my work number, 626-698-0990. That is my work number, and I will put you on speakerphone and be able to talk live. They won't see your picture, but you can talk about your case, and maybe I can help you out, or maybe someone listening could help you out. There's a lot of people that have been through this. And it's really sad that lately that what CPS is that they lie, they cheat, they're not transparent, they're not educated, they do not follow family reunification, and every case with child neglect or abuse is automatic. The child is in extreme danger and they have to be put into the foster care system, either in a shelter, a group home, or a single family home. And the foster care system is really bad too. Now, I myself have been through this case and I had to fight them for a long time. My case started in 2010 with allegations that were unfounded. And for 5 years, I fought them off. And then in the 2015, they used trickery and they conned a police detective to con me to come home and open up my house to find something. They didn't tell me what the allegations were. They didn't tell me what's going on. And on top of that, they didn't have a court warrant to come into my house. And I should have said no. I did not know, just like the rest of you. There's some people I talked to this morning that did not know about letting them into your home. Once they're in your home, they will try to find something. So they came into my life without the allegations. The ones they've been discussing for the 5 years, I disproved them by talking to them. And I had shown my home a couple times before, and they did not find the things that the allegations that were coming in. My allegations came from a type of person called a lay person. That's someone that's not a professional. And they used it for alternative motives, meaning they did not like the family. They're actually my wife's parents and in-laws and sisters that for 5 years were constantly harassing us because they wanted the children. All because at the age of 60, I lost my job through no fault of my own. And instead of somebody helping me, they just wanted to break us down. And everything that they came up with, I disproved them. They were saying that we weren't feeding them, we weren't doing this, no electricity, no clothing stuff. They come and see the children well dressed. They went to school on a regular basis. They had good grades. The rooms were clean, and the house was full of food they could eat and stuff. So when they came out 5 years later and they tricked me and come into my home, they brought everybody there in front of my home. 5 firemen, 2 code enforcement, 3 social workers, 2 uniformed policemen, the detective. And they combed my home trying to find something wrong. And like a fool, I let them in. I should never have done that. They need a court warrant to come into your home. They're not transparent. They're not your friend. They're not nice. Angela Ray, I would love to be on the show tomorrow. I have some time, maybe before or after my surgery. I just want to make sure that all your viewers and that are now know that everything is real, but which it wasn't. Hi, Faye. Glad to have you. She's from Richmond, Kentucky. She's a regular. She's one that told me that the social workers were audited and they don't have accounting of $389,000 is missing. And she's really an advocate to fight social workers. And Faye, if you want to come on and talk, but that social worker that was on last night, she says she was a caseworker from Maryland and that she didn't do the things that I was accusing that Child Protection Service was doing. And so I guess all the 500 listeners and myself were all liars. But this caseworker went on and on and on, and I counted everything. I challenged her to the call, but she didn't. She did say she was from Maryland, and they have special training for 6 months that they go through before they can be a case manager, that they do not take children from the homes. Their goal is to keep them in the homes. But so far, there's one caseworker out of 500 people that said they keep them at home, because every story I hear, the children are automatically taken. They're supposedly in danger, and that is terrible. Angeline, if you want to be on my show tomorrow, I'd like you to schedule it with my producer, Grace. You email her, grace@vincentwdavis.com, and say you want to be on my podcast. Tomorrow is Wednesday, so you want to be on my podcast at 10 o'clock in the morning. If that's the time you want to be in, then you're welcome to do so. And if you're scheduled, there's guarantee you'll have that spot. Sometimes I don't have guest speakers. My phone number is open. You can call in on that. I had a guest speaker set up for tonight, but she didn't show up. So if anybody wants to call in or talk right now, I'd love to have you talk on this podcast. If anyone else wants to be on the podcast, you can schedule it with Grace at vincentwdavis.com. She's a great producer. I thank her for all she does. And I appreciate everything that she does to make the show go right. And so I've just started into the show, and I've taken about 6 minutes of your time, a little bit about telling things. There's no set format. Sometimes I'll talk about my case. Sometimes I'll talk about other people. Sometimes I'll talk about other topic matters. It's you, the audience, that kind of steers me in the direction you like me to talk about. I'm not an attorney. I am a husband, a loving father, and I want to take care of my family. But unfortunately, I had something that happened to me at the age of 65, which is wrong. You're not supposed to be dealing with this. Yes, I have 2 groups of children. My second group I started having at 52, 53 and 56. And that was with my second wife, my beautiful second wife, and we've been together for 32 years. And this family has suffered so much with CPS. I lost my house. It was so mortgaged out. We got someone calling in. Okay. Hello. Welcome. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Who is this I'm speaking to?
It's Faye from Richmond.
Yeah, hi Faye. How you doing? Glad to have you aboard.
I'm good.
Yeah, Faye's been on before.
I won't talk on here too long.
Oh, that's all right.
I come on here because, like, the reason why I say that I'm pretty sure it was the same social worker that attacked me was because she attacked me yesterday. And she said all kinds of stuff, but most of the stuff she said, she was trying to make it seem like I had a mental illness. I knew right off she was a social worker by the way she was talking.
She calls herself a caseworker. She calls herself a caseworker. She calls herself a caseworker. And that supposedly she has 6 months of training and she's a clinical psychiatrist.
No. She's full of crap. But anyway, she come on there and was saying all kinds of crazy stuff, trying to make me seem like I had mental illnesses and all this stuff. That's a classic social worker, classic licensed clinical social worker and caseworker go-to is mental health. Everybody's mentally ill. So I already knew she was a social worker before she ever really even said 3 words out of her mouth.
Well, she identified herself from Maryland, and you're down in Kentucky.
Yeah, she can say she's from anywhere.
True.
But that doesn't mean she is.
Right. She first said that she was from the East Coast. So,
and she very well could have been.
Yeah.
She very well could have been, but she's obviously these workers are obviously observing your podcast.
Really?
And
you think they are? I'm hoping that they
are. They are, because she told me she watched me on your podcast.
Wow.
Yeah. And then she came stalking me on my page and leaving nasty remarks and stuff, and I pretty much handed her ass to her, and she got mad and blocked me.
Okay.
So.
Well, she's opening up. She's opening up Faye for a civil lawsuit.
Oh yeah, and she also, she got really upset when I told her. I was like, oh, okay. I said, you want to come on here and judge me? I said, and say all these things about me. But I said, you social workers are no better. I said, half of you social workers have criminal records, mental illness. I said, you go to jail for beating your own kids like my social worker did, yet you still keep your job. You still keep your kids, and nothing's ever done to you. I said, the hypocrisy.
Yes, I agree with you, Faye. You've been following me for a long time, Faye, and I believe what you're saying, and you're the one that pointed out about the discrepancy and the money that was unaccounted for in Kentucky.
Mhm.
And I talk about that every night to tell people, they're a $38 billion business, and all they're in it is for the money.
Well, I have a video. I have an actual video of a judge in a room full of social workers telling them that if when they go into a home and remove children, that they have to put a finding with that before they can actually place the child in out of home placement, or else they don't get paid. So basically, if there isn't any abuse going on in the home, like neglect or physical abuse, if that social worker decides to go ahead and remove your kids anyway, she has to accuse you of neglect or abuse and put it on the affidavit to the court before they'll get paid for that child.
I see. Now, Kay, does that judge talk about having a court order for removing a child?
I'd have to go back in the video, and I don't think that he did.
Well, I'm trying to find out what the imminent danger. You see, I've been, studying this for quite some time, and I've been wanting to know what the imminent danger is that children are removed.
Imminent danger or exigent circumstances is like if the children have signs of being battered, like bruises on them, or if the children are acting fearful while the social worker's there, like of the parent, or, like the social worker comes in and, like the house is disheveled, like dirty maggots, mold on the food. I mean, just, deplorable.
Yeah. But how come a lot of the cases that call in here, they say there was no imminent danger? It's like the mother that was going for surgery, and she's on right now, and she was at Boston, Massachusetts, when the social workers asked her where her child was, and she said, my child's with my mother in another state in Rhode Island. And they went out of the jurisdiction of Boston, Massachusetts to go to Rhode Island, which they didn't have jurisdiction, and stole the child.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard of them going to other states.
That is wrong. I would say if that state found out there was another social worker from another state coming in their territory, they would be mad.
Yeah, Kentucky goes to Tennessee and Indiana a lot of the time.
To do what? To do what?
To pick up kids, or to just mainly to pick up a child.
And what is the purpose of picking up a child?
Well, what happens is a lot of times they live in that state, and then they think if they move out of that state and go and have their child at the hospital in another state, that the state prior won't know about it. And see, what happens is if you've had kids taken away before by the cabinet or by CPS, DCF, whatever you want to call it, and they flag you in the system, and then you go to another hospital and you have your baby, all hospitals have a system that they run anytime any child is born in the hospital. They run it through a child abuse registry thingy, and it lets them know, if the parents have been, flagged through the social services. Why would they think
that every parent is an abuser of children?
I don't know, but they do it. They do it because parents go in, they have babies in the hospital, and everything's all good and fine, and then all of a sudden the social worker shows up at the room claiming that they've neglected and abused the baby, and they haven't even had a chance to take the baby home yet, and they're under cameras at the hospital, so there's no possible way that they could have abused their child. So what it is that 90% of the time, these people have had cases, either closed ones from the past, and they've been flagged, and they've went and they've had their baby, and that showed up in the system, and the hospital has notified the agency, and then they come to the hospital and try to take the baby.
Now, why does not the hospital tell the caseworker or the social worker that you need to wait in the lobby? And do you have a court order to remove that child?
Well, usually the hospital puts from how I've understood it, the hospital itself will hold the child till the social services gets there. Usually kick the parents out of the room and everything, and it's just crazy how they do it. I don't know why CPS has the power that they do. I really don't.
Well, I'm just being an advocate. I know they don't. The thing what really disturbs me is how the jurisdictional. I mean, there is that ICPC, that special agency that helps with the children going from one state to another state. But I don't know how that social workers can go from one state to another state without contacting that state's social, that CPS system first before they remove a child. I thought
they probably do. I mean, they probably do contact them.
Well,
but I mean, all I know is from the experiences I've dealt with is that generally it's the hospital that makes the call. The hospital puts the hold on the baby till the social worker gets there.
Now, why is the hospital? Why does the hospital make Why does the hospital make a call or hold the baby? Why is the hospital interested in that part?
Well, because if you're flagged in their system, the hospital is required to.
So what you're saying is that parents who have a child and maybe they're abusive during their time and they have a second child, they're flagged.
Yes, you are. Yeah. CPS will tell you if they've ever taken a child from you, and then you have another child, that the odds are they'll take that child too.
Well, here's one thing.
Told me that.
Do the social workers tell you that while your case is open, you're not allowed to have any more children? Were you ever told that?
No, but I have seen cases where they have said that, yes.
Okay, because when I was taken, my children were taken in, they told us right away, you're not planning to have any more children. How can they do that? I've researched, and it says that it's part of our constitutional rights that we can have children. There's nothing that says we cannot have children.
Right.
And I've been looking for, I think what CPS has done, they've got out of hand. And I think what it all channels to, Faye, that I see the common thing with all these shows I've been doing is that the sole purpose is to make money. If it's a $38 billion business and social workers are given bonuses so they can buy their Gucci purses, so they can buy their eyelashes or makeup in their BMW car, and they have an incentive for that. I mean, my case was this social worker system was in Orange County, and they had the Taj Mahal where the director reside. Not the other caseworkers, but the Taj Mahal and all the supervisors. And when I came to visit, it must have been 20 stories high. It was emerald green, like the Wizard of Oz emerald green. And this director, I met the top dog, and he was so bad with money is that he had so much gold around his neck. I thought he was going to fall over.
Yeah.
And so, trying to talk to him intelligently from one CO to another CO, because I have a background that I've been helms of organizations. I know how to talk the lingo. And I was trying to say my constitution violated. They took my children without a warrant. I gave them permission because I didn't know better. And I thought they were a government agency that you could trust. Also, I thought the police could be trusted. So I was fooled once by the police and once by the social worker. And when I had two uniformed policemen and the detective and the fireman and the code enforcement and the social workers walking through my home, they didn't tell me what the allegations were. They were trying to find allegations. The fire department was measuring where my smoke alarms were installed. Code enforcement was checking to make sure I had a chain on my back gate and the gate around the swimming pool was secured. They were looking for things.
Right.
And the social workers were looking for things too. And nobody came up with anything. The only thing they did come up with is they charged me and my wife with neglect. And the neglect was that the parents' belongings that were stacked that I was sorting through could possibly injure the children. And it's like they weren't in imminent danger. They were at school, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that could have been very easily corrected. I didn't have the funds to put everything in storage, but I could have got some help from them to put things into storage. But they wanted to make a federal case.
That's ironic because, listen, and I know I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That's ironic that you say that they made such a big deal out of you having a room with a bunch of boxes stored in it. It's because when the CPS came to my house, when they came to take my kids away, I had went through something very similar to you. My biological mom had passed away, and I had to handle all of her estate because I was her only child.
Right.
And I had to go and clean my mom's house out. And I couldn't afford to pay a big storage fee for all the stuff she had.
Exactly.
And I couldn't sell it. Without going through probate court first.
Well, not only that, if you want to give it to your family members, it takes time to wrap it and contact them.
Yeah, and I had to store it in my apartment in my spare room, and so when CPS came in, I had one whole bedroom that was almost stacked up to the ceiling with boxes.
Right.
But you know what? That was never mentioned in my case at all.
Really? Because my case, it wasn't in the bedrooms. Each child had their own bedroom upstairs. The master bedroom had double doors. Where the things were, they were parked downstairs, and when you walked around, there were still walkways and areas, but they were making it sound like I had little children. My children were ages 9, 12, and 15, and they were taller than the boxes. They were looking for something. They were looking for something. And then...
Yeah, that's what they do best. That's what they do best.
Yes.
They fabricate, and that's what they're doing when they're walking through your house. They're looking to fabricate any evidence they can find to make you, look like you shouldn't have your kids. They tried every way they could to find reasons, to put for them taking my kids, but the only thing they could fall back on was mental illness. And that mental illness was 20-something years old. And it was when I was in foster care, I was diagnosed with clinical depression, and it was due to me being raped by my foster dad.
Wow.
And they used that in my case to make me look mentally unstable, and I'm not mentally unstable. Anybody that's ever talked to me can tell I'm not a mentally unstable person.
Right. That's horrible what you went through foster care. That was that a single family home with a family that you're in?
I mean, I was in many homes. I was never in just
the one that you got raped, though. The one you got raped, was that?
Yeah, the one that I was being raped in was a single family home. It was a mom, a dad, and 2 kids.
Wow. Were those kids being raped too?
The 5-year-old was.
Oh, no. Wow. Did the CPS ever investigate the foster care parents?
I told them that he was raping his daughter, and he was shifting off onto me after her. And the social worker basically told me to just suck it up, Buttercup, and deal with it because I don't have nowhere to move you.
Oh, my God. A social worker said, suck it up, Buttercup, and I have no place to place you?
Yep. She says, every place I put you, you disrupt. She said, you can't get along with anybody. She said, and quite frankly, I'm just tired of dealing with your ass.
How old was that social worker?
She was in her 40s, I think.
Wow. She should know better if she's been working it a long time.
Yeah. Well, they all should know better, but we all know they don't.
Yeah, that's what is so sad because when I had the social worker come on last night, it was very, very disruptive in the sense that she was trying to paint a picture that her system and her CPS in Maryland was beautiful. They never took away children. They talked
No,
about,
she's so classic narcissism. Classic
you can
narcissism.
watch that.
That's a
Have you
classic
have you
social worker.
watched my podcast for last night with the social worker on Monday
I
night?
didn't get to. I was looking for it though, and I didn't see it, but I'm going to. I can almost bet you it's her because she attacked me the night before, and then the next day a social worker calls in on your show. I mean, and she mentioned watching me on your show. So when I told her off in Messenger and on my page about how they treat kids and how children are murdered in their care, raped and beaten, and all these other things and stuff, she just laughed like, whatever, you're such a liar. We don't do that to children. And then she's going to come on your show and try to make herself look like all these unicorns, rainbows.
Well,
we're just such great people.
She had a picture. She had a picture of herself posted. She put her name. You have that name, right?
I mean, the name is different. What you're saying it is, but that doesn't matter. Anybody can say their name is whatever.
I agree. I mean, people in here say they're from Mozambique.
My name was Tamara Thompson, but clearly my name is not Tamara Thompson.
Well, I would think that this being a show, I'm here to help you. If you want to lie or abuse the show, the people that are on here, there maybe have been some. And I've had some people I've had to block because they're very rude and they started being sarcastic and being very demeaning.
Right.
And so I have the prerogative to block anybody in my podcast if they get out of hand. I'm very open. I try to let people talk. I try to let people relate to their case, and I want to help them because they are facing an agency that is so bad. I've been studying the history, and they've divided the history into 3 eras. The eras of the colonial times to 1875 and 1875 and 62, and then from 62 to the present. And most of the changes are made in the 70s and 80s. And I saw where the...
and that's when I was in foster care.
Right. And it's so sad. It's because we as parents did not know any better. And that's my stupidity. I had gone to college, but I'd never studied social workers or caseworkers or child protection services or anything else. The child protection system is broke. And I know it's broke. And it seems like no one is caring about it. I had not heard anything in the news or any of the Congress people, the senators or representatives are saying anything about it. So,
well, listen. So yesterday, our advocacy group went to the Capitol in my state. Okay,
Kentucky,
and
right?
We took a cemetery that we made up there and placed it on the lawn of all of the children. Like, we had 16 or 18 of them, and we placed them on the lawn that had been murdered while in CPS custody.
Wow.
Now, this was where all the politicians is coming in and out of the buildings, and all the cast of workers, social workers, people see all this. Mm-hmm. But you know what? Not one person, maybe a handful of people asked about those children and about what happened to them and so on and so forth. We had a senator that he halfway acted like he cared, but then again, he kind of acted like he didn't either, and it's just funny to me, that everybody makes a big deal out of all these little foreigners, coming across the border, these foreign kids and stuff, and, bad things happening to them in CPS care, them disappearing and them being murdered in care and all kinds of other things. But people won't make a big deal out of our own blood-born children here in the United States being done that way in the United States foster care system.
Yeah.
Why are they any different than the children coming across the border. Everybody makes a big deal out of them, but you never hear nobody making a big deal about the foster kids being murdered and raped and beaten and tortured to death in CPS custody.
Well, they say one in every.
It's been all over the news.
Right, they say one in every 20 children is being investigated.
Yeah, and you have just.
Gets money from
there's been cases in the past, like that. What was his name? The little Hispanic boy that was murdered, and CPS was involved with the family the whole time. I think his last name was Hernandez, but I can't remember.
Right.
He was tortured to death. And CPS was involved with that family the whole time, and they never removed that child.
Did you hear about Go ahead.
Huh?
I was going to say,
it's okay. Go ahead.
Did you hear about the Korean boy of age 3 that was brought from Korea through the Holt Adoption Agency, and that was adopted by foster care parents that abused him, and he's abused them for such a long time. And at age 38, he had a family, he had children, he had a business, he had a job, and he's doing fine. But because the first set of foster care parents did not make him a U.S. citizen. You see, when you're adopted,
he had to be deported.
He had to be deported. There's actually a movie that supposedly has not their permission to make it, but it's called The Blue Bayou, and it's a good movie that talks about it. But here's this man deported. ICE got involved. They deported him to Korea. He didn't speak the language. He didn't know his Korean place. He was terribly lost there. Now he's moved to Mexico, and he's trying to get back into the United States.
Yeah.
And I'm just.
Yeah, it's sad. I'm telling you.
Well, they're going to say that.
Sad what happened.
They're going to say, Bob, it's because there's one or two cases, but not every case is. Then my question to all these people: why have the people I talk to have something in common? Why are they victimized of CPS taking their children without allegations? Alleged allegations. Why? And I say that, I didn't make these up. I think about the poorest place in the United States, the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota, and how Indian children for a long time have been abused and taken, and CPS now has to follow the ICWA law, the Indian Child Welfare Law.
I was just talking to a lady tonight, and she was on a CASA website begging CASA to help her get her children back out of foster care, and said that DHS wouldn't help her. The DHS wouldn't help her do anything. And I was like, I looked at her page and everything, and you could tell that her and her kids both were of Indian descent. And I'm like, wait a minute, your children are in foster care. I was like, so did they not look at you all being of Indian descent before placing your kids in foster care? And I said, because if they didn't follow the policy on ICWA, that is a federal crime.
Well, yeah, because what it was doing, I looked at the studies of this. Now, you have to go back to the 1870s and 60s when the Indians were being very well abused and very well slaughtered off, okay? And it got really worse towards the 1880s and 90s. And what happened was they started cutting the hair of Indian children, no longer could speak their native language, whether it was Cheyenne, Lakota, Crow, or whatever it was. And they were put in these Indian schools and taught this religion that may not, been all that great. The sad part about it is these Indian children were abused. Well, they continued to be abused through the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. Anyway, it was so bad that every Indian child would get taken away, and never any chance for the family to get them back. And so they made that law that the Indian tribes are responsible for the child. If the Indian tribe is, registered, if the Indian is registered with that tribe or could be registered, they have to be federally recognized tribes of the federal government. And most of the tribes are. I don't know of any other tribe that I heard of that is not recognized by the federal government. And I'm glad we're talking about this because our listeners can hear this. It's called the ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act, and it happened in 1979. And there's got to be an effort by CPS social workers to make contact with the tribe or tribes and see if they can be registered or they are registered. And it's up to the CPS worker to do that investigation. And if they do contact the tribe, then the tribe's going to ask for that child to be turned over so they can be placed in Indian families and that family can be brought back together for reunification. This is the part that disturbs me is reunification. They talk about neglect and abuse, but they don't talk about family reunification. And that's what it's all about. Just because you have a hiccup in life doesn't mean you're a bad parent or a bad person. I think someone that is a social worker that rapes or hurts children is wrong. And that is a bad person. But people that may have had hiccups in life, maybe they took drugs or have an alcohol problem or something like that, or maybe they weren't watching the children close enough. They were in the backyard, the child was in the front yard. These are things that can be worked out. And these are things that can be corrected. Those behaviors can be corrected. But for them to take every child is that they're in danger and place them right away is so they can start collecting money on that child. Because once they're in there, they get the they get that $20,000 a month. And if you have 3 children, that's $60,000. You have 100 children, that's $600,000.
Right.
And that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because and if I know what I know now, or my wife had known what we know, first of all, our child would never have been taken from us because I'd asked for the court order. And second of all, I would have got an attorney right away. And we probably have our daughter. We're still missing our daughter. I'm saddened every night, every day. I think about our 21-year-old daughter, who was taken from us at age 12, that was forced to divorce us, parents, forced to seal her birth certificate, forced to change her name, and forced to be adopted. That was all done by the social worker we had. And the reason why, she was taking revenge because our attorney, Vincent Davis, was cross-examining her because my wife's sister was trying to adopt her for alternative motives. And there was a question about violence. Does your husband do domestic violence? And yes, they did. And the social worker covered it and said, no, there's no violence. The child's perfectly safe. And in the cross-examined, she lied under oath. And we could have sued her pants off. And she was not taken by my wife's sister, but then she was taken by strangers who have abused her in foster care because we've heard some reports. She's 21 now, but she isn't all together.
Yeah. She's not even there. Yeah.
In fact, she's no longer with the foster care parents that she was adopted. She has her own apartment with a roommate. She's 21 now. And but she's been so brainwashed to think our parents are bad parents.
Right. Yeah, I was going to tell you, if you look down in your chat, I put the ICWA in there so that people could read it. And then I also put a link to the video where the judge is telling social workers how to make findings before removing children from the home.
Thank you.
So that they won't forfeit federal funding.
Yes. I agree with you. I have to say a couple things. Don't leave me, Faye. I just need to tell a couple things to the people listening. Okay. For all you listeners out there, you need an attorney. And the way I explain this to you is rule number 1 is that fighting with CPS is no different than having open heart surgery. You need a professional person to navigate through the bad part of CPS. It is so bad. And you need an attorney that knows it because, as I tell everybody, if you know the story of Alice in Wonderland, she fell in the hole and hit all the wrong doors. And so I'm telling you now is you need to get an attorney. And Mr. Davis is one of those attorneys that will help you. He has a consultation for 30 minutes that he'll talk to you for $49.99. That's for a half an hour, $50, and he'll talk about the strategies. He's also a fighter with CPS. He's a trial attorney. He's a family law attorney, and he'll go anywhere. He's worked in every state and worked in Northern and Southern California. And I had to sell my home because I had a high mortgage, so I had very little uh, equity in my home, and I used all my equity to fight to get my two sons back. But I want everybody out there to listen. It's important to have an attorney. Your public defender will not win your case. You need a real attorney. So make sure that you talk to Vincent Davis and you look for one. They're out there, family law attorneys, and you'll be able to find one that maybe affords me. The second rule is I want everybody to have a notebook to keep track of everything. I never did, and things will get lost. And what I mean by that is that every incident you have with the CPS, you need to write it down. And you do the date, the time, and the people involved, write their names down. And the next line, you put down what the incident was about. If it takes you 2 or 3 lines, use them up. Then you got to put the outcome. How did it end? And if you don't know, you leave it blank and come back later to fill it out. Then skip a couple lines because you can come back and write more information. You do each incident so you fill up your notebook. And that will go a long way to help you fight your case and remember what happened and who you saw and what you did. And lastly, is that do not allow them to go into the home. They do not have a right to go in a home. They need your permission. And they can't come in a home if there's imminent danger going on. That's like a gun shooting taking place or a child's head being smashed against the wall or people are fighting each other. That's imminent danger. They can't enter the home. Also, they need a court order to enter the home. And it's got to be very well filled out. It's got to be signed by a judge. It's got to be very specific with the allegations and who they're accusing and the home address and the date and time they can visit to take away the child. And that goes for either a social worker or a policeman. You have to have that warrant. And what you can do very easily is don't open the door. And if you talk to them outside, just yes, no answers. And that you can say, I need to talk to my attorney till I get back to you. Ask for a business card because they'll lie. If you ask for the name and phone number, you need to see a business card because without the business card, they will lie. I've seen the lightness on the detective and all the people there. They are really extremely lying. So those are my 3 rules. I want to get them in before my time on the show. I have about 10 minutes left, and I'm enjoying talking to Faye, who's bringing light on a lot of issues. They're helping me out. She's an advocate for, CPS is an awful, awful thing. She's been supposedly been tracked or followed or stalked, I should say. And there was a social worker that was on last night, and that social worker really got into. She was professional. She said nothing rude, but she was so insistent that she was right, and that what I said. Well, she just said, "Well, I'm sorry that happened in your area." Well, will the other 500 people you say this sorry happened in their area? The person in Massachusetts or in Rhode Island or in Nova Scotia or at the Rosebud reservations or El Paso, Texas. There's lots of areas, Tennessee and Alabama, San Antonio, Texas, and Georgia and so forth. All those are making up stories. No, I don't think so. And so I appreciate everything you're saying, Faye, and thank you for providing the information. And also very happy to hear from Michelle Causwell Robertson. And she, it says Gabriel Hernandez. I don't know what you mean by that.
Yeah, Gabriel Hernandez. That was the name I was trying to think of. Yeah.
Who is Gabriel Hernandez? Who is Gabriel Hernandez?
He was a child that CPS was involved with the family, and they were, there had been school teachers, counselors, family members that had called in about the abuse that he was going through with his. I think it was his dad and the stepmom, I believe.
Okay.
And they were torturing that child. I mean, torturing him, and abusing him. I mean, it was horrendous. And CPS kept getting called, kept going out, kept leaving the child there, leaving him there. So finally, they killed him.
Oh boy, I gotta look up that story, Gabriel Hernandez. Okay.
Yeah, it was actually on Netflix. You can look it up on Netflix, and Netflix tells the whole story.
Yeah, and Angelina Ray, thank you from Rhode Island. She's the one that she had her children taken from her mother, where they drove from Boston, Massachusetts, to Rhode Island.
Yeah.
And so she's been on tonight. Yeah. So I want to thank all you people that have been, that call in and try to express things, because I know how hard it is for you to go through that. I've been really hurting a lot lately because I finally realized what was going on.
Well, we just had a Kentucky prosecutor here accused of doing favors for meth while on the job.
Right. Wow.
Yep. Perry County Commonwealth Attorney Scott Blair. Yep. He got arrested. He's in jail for supposedly doing favors for meth. Yep.
Wow. That boy.
And he's not the only one here in Kentucky. There's been numerous other officials that's been arrested for doing this kind of stuff.
Well, in 2013, May 24th, Gabriel Hernandez, an 8-year-old boy from Palmdale, California, who had been abused and tortured over a period of months, was murdered.
Yeah. Very sad story.
Yep. And what happened to the workers in his case is that
not a thing.
A spokesperson for the county Superior Court confirmed to NBC News on Thursday that the judge, George Lommel, tossed out the case during a hearing earlier in the day. In Lommel's ruling, the judge found that the social workers were factually innocent of the crimes, according to NBC News of Los Angeles. That is horrific.
Well, of course.
I've never heard of that story,
Of course.
and it is so bad.
Yeah, here's the thing. You're getting call after call after call about a child.
Yes.
And school teachers and counselors at the school, doctors, they're all calling in about this child being horribly beaten, coming to school black and blue, bruises all over him, looking unwell, looking underweight and everything else, dirty and everything else. And you go out and you find nothing wrong, and then these same workers are found not guilty for anything. It's bull malarkey. It's absolute bull malarkey.
Well, what is this other case about somebody named around the same time? Johnson sent McQuarrie texts and played several calls recorded by McQuarrie and later presented in court, claiming she suffocated Gabriel to death and put his body in a diaper bag and disposed of the bag in a dumpster. What was?
Yeah, I mean that's
that is so sad. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
And the outcome is the
you
judge.
You hear some of the stories of the ones out of Kentucky. Look up Amy Dye.
Wow.
Out of Kentucky. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's something here called the Kentucky Child Protector System under scrutiny after a girl. Um, wow.
Yep. Amy Dye. Yep. What happened with her, just real quick, is she was adopted by her aunt out of foster care, okay, which are relatives. And the aunt's son was accused of killing her. He supposedly caused blunt force trauma to her head with an axe.
Well, he said he was beating the death of the Amy Dye.
Yep. Yep.
She went missing and was found dead. And it
Yeah.
was her brother. Amy's brother pleads guilty. I agree that we need child protection for neglect and abuse. That's important. But somehow the social workers have got to get off the bandwagon and make a decision if they're going to be ethical and not accuse everybody of having their children in imminent danger.
Well, here's my thing with that. You know, how can you protect kids when you're taking kids knowingly and placing them in dangerous situations, in homes of sex offenders, convicted felons, convicted child abusers, and you're leaving them there, and then these kids ultimately die? You're taking a child that was alive, placing them in a dangerous situation with these convicted felons, child abusers, child molesters, child rapists, and then you're giving the child back to the biological parents in a box.
Wow.
So, you know, I don't know, but I just think that there's got to be something better than CPS when it comes to protecting kids. Because from what I'm seeing, more children are dying in their care than they're saving.
Well, I think we have to revamp the whole service. And we have to revamp it, meaning that we need to come up with something totally different. I think that, first of all, that these special social workers need to be college educated and have taken social classes. Also, I think they need to be transparent and held accountable. I think there has to be a board of directors or supervisors that oversees the program. I think these individuals have to have a certificate or license that are renewable every couple of years. They have to be, they really, and then on top of that, they should be social workers for a period of at least 5 years to get seasoned, preferably maybe 10 years. If a doctor is going to perform surgery and he's done his medical school and internship, he has mentored other doctors before he really becomes a full-fledged doctor. And again, doctors have license, and the license can be revoked. And these licenses should be renewable because there's new things that come out. These social workers need a good background check. They need to be checked.
Well, that's the thing. Most of the social workers here in my state, I don't know about other states, but just in mine, they're allowed to continue to work even with, criminal backgrounds and with, mental illness and with, charges like beating their own kids and things like that. They're still allowed to stay at their job. My children's social worker was arrested in December of last year for beating up her kids. And she didn't spend even a day in jail. She didn't have to pay a bond to get out. And she went back home to her kids and back home to her job.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I've run out of my time. I have about 30 seconds left. Again, I want to thank you, Faye. And
you're welcome.
And I thank you, Michelle.
Check that link out.
Yeah, I am.
That link out that I sent you, and
see it.
Check that out because you're going to want to see that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing it.
You're welcome.
Well, everybody, do not give up. Be strong. Fight for your kids' return. Do not give up. You will get your kids back eventually. God bless y'all, and thank you for listening to me tonight. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. This is Bob
Good night.
Pace. This is Bob Pace saying good night.